G'day, guys. This is on glutathione, on what is appropriate for glutathione and what isn't, because there's a lot of misinformation on this subject matter. Throughout not only even some people in our community seem to have really some less than satisfactory opinions or views in regards to glutathione. Obviously, the veg-tards, the veganerized community tend to have this sort of absurd belief that all these compounds, plant compounds that tend to increase glutathione, they must be good. I should spend a bit of money on that sort of stuff. It's your typical veganerized nonsense, but that's nothing new. People should understand that the sort of associated nonsense that a lot of these studies that Vagoon academics peddle out constantly to big note, the compounds in plants, these important compounds do so many great things, increasing glutathione, which is good, they tell you, and all this other nonsense. What they don't tell you is, how do those compounds get the glutathione to go up? When does glutathione actually go up? Oh, that's right. When there's a problem. These plant compounds are just poisoning you. They're not doing anything else. In order to understand what is the most appropriate diet for glutathione, we have to start from first principles. All the other stuff is just nonsense, propaganda, smoke and mirrors and all the rest of it. It's not reality. It's good PR. That's all it is. It's just nonsense. Now, let me just share my screen to make some of these points. Now, first principles, my dears, first principles. So, glutathione nutrients. So what is it made of? Glutathione itself, glutathione itself is not a dietary nutrient, but a powerful antioxidant produced in the body from amino acids, cysteine, glycine, and glutamate or glutamic acid. So it's a tripeptide, okay? That's what, the scientific lingo. Key nutrients that support the natural glutathione production and function include these amino acids, as well as the mineral selenium, which acts as a cofactor. As you can see, that's it. All this other nonsense behind foods rich in these compounds, like those containing proteins, vegetables, and certain fruits. And have you played with your tool, Mr. AI? I bet you have. Maybe your satanic elite who controls you has programmed you to say all this nonsense. What do you expect from such lovely people that operate these AIs? It's nonsense. It's bullshit. What we need to say is, what is it produced from? These 3 amino acids, it's a tripeptide. 3 amino acids, there you go. Even this dumb AI understands that. And selenium is a key cofactor that's necessary. Let's look at the rest of this nonsense. So what we got? The primary nutrients for glutathione synthesis are the 3 amino acids that form it, obviously, because it's a tripeptide. Cysteine. This sulfur-containing amino acids. We know what we get from cysteine. Remember, kiddies? My favourite compound, taurine. From methionine and cysteine. So is often considered the rate-limiting amino acid in glutathione production. So it is very important. And we know that animal foods are the highest sources of cysteine, not plants. So that's important because that's rate limiting. So if you're not getting enough, you're not producing enough. So the rest is just, let's talk nonsense and bullshit. Glycine, an essential amino acid that helps form the glutathione molecule, that tripeptide molecule. Glutamate, the amino acid, also contributes to glutathione's structure and function. So that is the polypeptide structure, and some of those aminos that allow it to fold and function in a certain way. Because remember, proteins have to fold in certain ways in order to do their activity in the body. And my favorite molecule, taurine, is the one that actually helps with the folding and some of the regulation of these molecules, like glutathione. So, besides the building blocks, other nutrients that play a vital role. Well, we know selenium is an essential cofactor, so that's important. As far as vitamin C and vitamin E, all they do is basically glutathione regenerates them. So it can give them an electron, because remember, an antioxidant is something that gives an electron. These ones don't have much, which means that when they lose it, they become potentially a pro-oxidant. Glutathione gives them an electron and recycles them. So that's why it's important to be on a species-appropriate diet. So you're getting sufficient recycling of vitamin C and vitamin E. That means the level you need to consume of these is far less. We're on diets that are very poor in the amino acids, which are plant-based, and other types of, sad dieters who are nearly plant-based nowadays, who are consuming far less of these important nutrients. They're going to have problems, in that regard. They'll probably go and buy themselves a supplement, and, whatever doesn't get used, that's right, the rest becomes obsolete. Fantastic. Another way of, poisoning yourself. That's the problem with ascorbic acid. The reduced form gets placed in the endoplasmic reticulum and locked in there until the body needs it. That's the animal reduced form that you find in animal tissue. So, yeah. But unfortunately, people still believe that high dosing of ascorbic acid is a good thing. Surprise, surprise. We've seen all the experiments from the animal studies, because we can't lock people up and do experiments. So we can only see the stuff from the animal studies. And we know that until their immune system becomes weak in old age, a lot of these antioxidants actually, because you need a bit of oxidative stress, not a lot, but a bit, they undermine it when they give them in high doses, and they actually shorten the life of the rats. So, are they that good? Yes, you've heard all the propaganda. And there have been some academics that have pushed vitamin C for cancer and stuff like that. Guess what happened to one of them? Lionel Paulings. His wife basically had cancer, and he gave her bigger doses. She didn't survive. So sometimes when you have these strong beliefs, they can backfire. Phytonutrients. The favorite things of the veganerized community. Nothing like, a plant-based poison, because that's what I call them. Phytonutrients are plant-based poisons. And studies have been studied for their ability to support glutathione levels. Well, I wonder why glutathione levels go up. when you poison the body. Oh, that's right, because glutathione acts as an important detoxifier. That's the whole thing. So you pay to poison yourself in order to increase your glutathione levels. When the poisoning is reduced in your body, glutathione levels go back to normal. So you just paid it. That's a really smart strategy, isn't it? You know, only the veganurized community could convince people to deliberately poison themselves in order to pay supplement companies money to do that in order to get their glutathione to go slightly up. Fantastic logic. You can't make this shit up. You know, it's just fantastic logic. Look, glutathione is an important thing to deal with oxidative stress when it's really high. And it's a good thing because it also plays on the redox balance. And this is where it doesn't, you could say, go wacky out of hand. It has a sort of a regulatory effect on sort of maintaining redox balance, as it's called, which is really, you know, sort of when you have certain reactions between, you know, your sort of your electrons, and then there's the reduction part, which you gain electrons. You lose and you gain, and they're sort of a balancing act of, you know, between the antioxidant and the ROS processes in the body. This is the sort of the redox balance, and you know the body with glutathione in a properly species appropriate diet, it regulates appropriately because even some ROS has benefits. Too much is bad. Too little is not a good thing. So this is the nice thing about glutathione, that it has that, it responds within the right parameters of redox, you know, homeostasis. That is important in the body. Giving exogenous, you know, which is externally shoving them down your throat, of high doses of, in particular, vitamin C and vitamin E, but in particular vitamin C, isn't a good thing. Okay, it disturbs this redox balance, which, you know, causes problems to us. But unfortunately, we've been sold a lot of this propaganda for a very long time, and a lot of people sort of have just bought into this, all this damn nonsense. You know, it's annoying. So you need, you know, for your PUFA melatonin side, you need the sort of some of these antioxidant enzymes, but also from the other part to sort of regulate growth and other things like that. You need to sort of part of the redox and the regeneration, sort of the ROS part within that redox balance. But when you throw in these things, these very high doses of C and E, you really muck this whole system up. And this is probably what's happening in the rats, I suspect. Obviously, the studies have been done in such a way where they've got a control and they've got another rat that's been given the high doses, but, you know, where they can give you, yes, in a mechanistic way, but they haven't teased out all the actual processes that are happening in the body. And I suspect it's this disruption in redox balance that's actually happening. You know, time will prove me right, as it has on many other subjects. But, you know, as they say, sometimes you have to be patient. Eventually these things happen. So the take-home message here is, you know, glutathione has to be within that homeostatic range and respond appropriately to function correctly. And it usually does, as long as we don't interfere with it, with doing other inappropriate things. And so when we look at, you know, food sources and stuff like that, for cysteine, glutamate, glycine, and selenium, and we're looking at animal foods, 100 grams. And for you Yanks, I know you're going to get annoyed me calling you that, especially if you're in the South. But, I just identify you as that, who are backward and are not on the metric system. You know who you are. For those characters, 100 grams means 3.53 ounces. Now, I'm not going to repeat myself. You get it once. So you'll have to do your own calculations. Anyway, so we're not going to look at, the powders and stuff like that. Let's just look at normal food, like oysters, pretty good sauce. You're going to get, 100 grams. You pretty much get nearly a good amount of cysteine. We go further down, we'll get better numbers. So tuna, fairly good with all of them. Just need to eat a bit more than 100 grams to get enough. When we go to the real animal, to the land-based animal foods, we're looking at, bacon, well over 100%, 134% at 100 grams at 3.53 ounces, and nearly 100% because it's 55 micrograms is what the selenium RDI is. So I wouldn't really, I know they say 500 is really toxic and all that sort of stuff, but it's pretty much the upper limit is determined by iodine, so if iodine levels are really friggin' low, then yes, it can become a problem. It's the same thing if iodine is high and selenium levels are very low, you can sort of have problems because your thyroid needs both of those, selenium, and it's not only glutathione, but also your thyroid requires to function both of those. And again, you can see in animal foods, you can get, a fairly good amount in that regard. So one egg would be about 16.55. So if you had like 4 eggs, you're getting about 66. Which divided by 55, that's about 120%. It's easy to do on an animal-based diet. And eggs are also very good for the sort of aminos. They really do well on these aminos as well. So, because remember, most of the eggs are far more whole egg, we're talking about now, are really good in that regard. So when we go down, remember that guy that used to do 1655 that used to do 25 eggs a day on average, 400 plus, and when he used to do 30, because he used to do 24 most of the times and 30 sometimes. So 24 is about that, nearly 400. And he would have gone over, he would have gone over that limit on many occasions, like 30 eggs is nearly 500, plus if he would have eaten other foods as well. But he had an addiction to eggs, remember that guy? Is what it is in that regard. And if we look at like beef, it'll have more 150, and here it's got about, so if you were having like some chuck pot, you'd be looking at 55 divided by 3 times 100. So you definitely get enough selenium on 6 ounces. 170 grams is 6 ounces. So you eat 6 ounces, you're going to get plenty. And on the cysteine side, we put the percentages. On the cysteine side, you get about 250%. With 6 ounces, of that. And it's pretty much that you'll see the same numbers as we go down. When we look at the pork, for braised pork loins and a lot of pork products, they tend to be much higher in selenium in comparison to a lot of the beef products, but slightly lower on the cysteine side. But that's why you should combine different sort of foods. We shouldn't be eating just one type of food all the time. We should vary, because even our hunter-gatherer sort of ancestors would have killed different animals. They wouldn't have been just killing one type, whatever was available. So even chicken is fairly good. Just on the selenium side, it's much lower. So you'd have to basically eat 200 grams to get 100%. So 200 divided by 28 point. So it's about just slightly over 7 ounces in order to get the same levels of selenium that would be required in that regard. And remember, our diet is less inflammatory. The only time when we get any inflammatory effect will be when we eat. And that's all food, because inflammasome goes up as part of the immune response in the gut. And once the body realizes, okay, this is just aminos, we know the stuff, it's not anything dangerous, like a dangerous pathogen, a virus or whatever that's got into the gut. No, it's just basically okay. It's something we recognize and it calms down. But we do get some inflammation whenever we eat. It's just one of those realities, and then it calms down because it knows that what it is. And there are different types of food that got very, like shrimps. Shrimps are fairly good. You can see here selenium levels are really good on the selenium levels, and so are sardines. But on the cysteine, they're just below the 100, as they are here. So if you just go like 100, if you go for like 6 ounces, you'll get more than enough from shrimps and sardines in that regard, and again from herring as well. So if you're eating about 150, you'll be definitely over that. So if you get a can which has got 150, not an issue, or a serving of 150, you'll get pretty much all you need for the whole day. You can see that it's very easily on a species appropriate diet. We get multiple times more than on any diet. And when it comes to glutamate, the best sources tend to be in terms of concentration, it's cheeses, which are very high in it. So if we look at, I'll just go up here, which is very important also for the immune system. Glutamate is a key component of the immune system. It's the reason when they use those glutamate inhibitors in cancer patients that they end up in cachexia, or they end up really emaciated and really bad, because it's important for collagen structures and all that. So I don't think it's a smart strategy. What we need to do is just lower the sugar, because cancer cells and normal cells, they use everything. So you're harming the rest of the body. It's like killing the rest of the body to save it from something. It's just nonsense. It's not. We know, I've explained how this happens, how things happen in the body. I'm not going to explain it now, but you guys know about deuterium damaging the ATPase and how viruses manipulate the whole system to interfere with oxidative phosphorylation in the mitochondria. So we don't need to go into that at this stage, but that people think that reducing glutamate is the solution. Yeah, it may give you a few extra days, but it's not going to solve the problem. And you're going to weaken your immune system. And the immune system is the key thing that defends you. So a species-appropriate diet strengthens your immune system. And so does fasting. If you do it for a couple of days, you rebuild your immune system. And if you support it with a species-appropriate diet, that's going to give you a better fighting chance than any of these drugs. But that's my personal opinion. This is not medical advice. Just remember that. It's my personal opinion. But I'll leave it at that. So that's right. We wanted to go to the top. As you can see, Parmesan, hard Parmesan. It's actually one of the best. These are dried eggs, which is concentrated. It's a concentrate of eggs. So it's not just one or two single eggs, but it's a concentrated. It's a thing that they've used in burn victims, these sort of concentrates of egg powders and stuff like that, or white egg powders as well, which is another concentrate, which is very high as well. And that's what they've used that for burn victims in the past. Less nowadays because they've got all these wonderful drugs, don't you know? Yes. Then things like Edam, Gouda, Gruyere. I can never pronounce that correctly with my dyslexia. And then we'll get into one of my favourite cheeses, a Swiss cheese. Yummy. I like that. I like to put it on my patties on either side. So you put it, then you flip it over and put another one on the other side. Absolutely yummy. So it's one of my favourites there. And as you can see, 100 grams. That's just 5 slices. I don't even know how many slices. I know that's bad. Sort of tells. I do buy multiple packs. That should tell you how much I love it. Yeah. Anyway, let's move on before I reveal too much. He's got an addiction on Swiss cheese. Tell the whole world, Harry. Tell the whole world. So, bacon. Absolutely. So, selenium's nearly 92%, nearly there. Pork tends to be higher, as I said, in selenium. Bacon is another one of those things that tends to be higher, much higher than other parts of the pork. So when you look at other parts of the pork, it tends to be slightly lower, like close to 100 or slightly below or slightly above, where bacon, for whatever reason, is way higher. Not as high as beef or lamb, but it is in cysteine. It's slightly higher in comparison, and it does really well on the selenium side as well. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. Eggs are also a very good source of, iodine as well. So, I consider eggs as a really nice sort of food to throw in there to get a good level of iodine, a good level of selenium as well. Anyway, we'll leave it at that. The key thing, guys, is the take-home message is that our bodies, when you give them the right raw materials, which is the 3 amino acids and the 1 mineral, which is the cofactor selenium, then they work properly. Then they are able to produce and furnish the amount of glutathione you need. You don't artificially increase glutathione, because remember about the redox balance, very important. We don't want to disrupt that. That's when we get into trouble. Poisoning yourself and paying for it is stupid. To increase something which can potentially put the redox balance out of whack. Very, very stupid. And we should be thinking and saying, how do we want to properly support this so when we need it, it has the materials to function? Because if it doesn't have the aminos and selenium, well, it's not going to function, is it? Doesn't matter how much poisoning you do at the other end. Yes, it will increase it slightly, but also burn through your selenium whatever's there, the small amount, and the aminos, the small amount, it'll actually burn through and actually suppress even further your ability to produce glutathione, because there's rate limiting, remember? Cysteine is a rate limiting component of this tripeptide. And on a vegunarized diet, you're not going to get it sufficient, let alone, I mean, even the SAD diets today is just abysmal. It's becoming more and more plant-based, the SAD dieters. They've just bought the whole propaganda, many of them, especially the middle class. The sort of smarter I usually call them the smart sheep are the dumbest in society. It's usually your typical working class. They may not understand all the science and nuancing and all that, but they can smell bullshit and they can smell, this doesn't sound right. But the half-witted middle class that have just got a bit more academic education, they're the worst. They will bite any piece of propaganda you throw at them. Their mouths are just ready and open and salivating to bite any bullshit. And that's why, what do you think most of those academics become vegetarians and vegans? Surprise, surprise. Dumbness goes upwards, not downwards. It's a very small minority of those people that basically are the exceptional, and they're the ones that will think outside the box. The majority are just your regular, dumb academic sheep. Sorry to say, but that's the reality. And because nowadays you can't even question, everything's settled apparently. Can't question anything. And then you wonder why in academia it's bankrupted. Absolutely bankrupted with modelling and crap like that. Since the 70s, we've got this sort of absurdity with rationalist modelling and mathematized and all that. We don't need to measure reality. We don't need to do experiments. No, we can mathematically work out a whole mythology, science. It's the scientism world that we live in nowadays. It's just bullshit. And then along comes an experiment, like at the CERN particle accelerator, and the whole edifice of all that bullshit of string theory and multiverse and all the other nonsense just blown away. Remember the video that I did on the other channel with faith and all that? But it's for those who have viewed it. You haven't viewed it, go and view it. You may be a bit of an eye-opener to you. But this is the problem. When people don't look at first principles and they listen to propaganda, made up stuff, or stuff that basically sounds logical. Never believe in sounding logical. People like Goebbels, great propagandist for his time, they understood it's all about the visual. It's all about the story. It's all about, we don't want to look at the details. The moment you look at details, you start seeing contradictions to the stories. That's when you start asking questions. So keep your eye on the monitor. It will tell you all the truth. That's the main media, and that's the problem with most of our society. We've been conditioned to listen to these nonsense. And you know how funny it is that people are actually paying good money to poison themselves just to see a slight increase in their glutathione levels. Oh God, it's ridiculous. If it wasn't so sad, it would be hilarious. What can I say? Anyway, I feel for the poor mugs out there that are buying into this bullshit. But anyway, stick to your species appropriate diet, and it will give you the 4 nutrients you need to produce the glutathione, and your body will synthesize and furnish whatever amount your body needs, not what some crackpot told you it requires, but your body is smart enough to work out we've got a bit too much oxidative stress there, a bit too many things that are coming in that we need to clear out. And it will build the amount that it requires to respond to those specific needs. That's how a system's supposed to work in a well-regulated way. You know, we don't need to put exogenous garbage in and pay money to poison ourselves in order to artificially increase the levels to levels we don't require, let alone burn through resources, the 4 resources, that those 4 resources could be used for other processes like in your thyroid or other areas in your body that require those resources as well. Remember, you know, selenium is used in many other parts as well and plays a role as an antioxidant as well, and a whole lot of other roles in the body as cofactors to a lot of processes. So you don't want to be using a lot of these nutrients unless you really need to. And the last thing you want to do is poison yourself deliberately so you can use more of them when you don't need to. It doesn't get any more ridiculous than that, boys and girls. Not at all. So now that you've learned that a species appropriate diet is the only diet that gives you more than enough of these nutrients, go and tell the rest of the world and tell them to stop buying nonsense like these phytochemicals, or even worse, liposomal glutathione. Really? You really want to disrupt your redox balance in your body? Really? Ugh, the crazy things that people do. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this entertaining look at glutathione. See yous.